My name is Marshall Johnson. I'm the Loss Control Manager for the Office of Workers' Compensation. And Jeff and I spent a day or so with some other VDH people in a very similar class of this, and we decided that we probably needed to offer it to you guys as a whole, because some of the questions that arised out of it and some of the concerns that some of the people that we were talking to that participated in that class had. So this one's a little bit different. The first part of the class is, if you look at the agenda, we're going to just do a quick overview. We're going to talk about some of the workers' compensation statistics and why this is important to you guys. Personal awareness. For those of you who often go out alone to do your jobs, this one is pretty close to my heart. It's one that your personal awareness, your personal safety when you work alone. It's a little bit of what I would say a pet peeve that drives me, not just with you guys, but law enforcement officers, game and inland fisheries people, conservation recreation, game wardens, those people. So I think you kind of fall into that. And we're going to talk a lot about that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about vehicle safety. Most of us have to get in a vehicle, drive to wherever we're going to do our job, get back in it, go to the next place, so on and so forth. And we're going to talk a lot about that and some of the statistics related to it. We'll take a short break later on in the day, and then we will talk about bugs, insects, snakes, other wildlife, poisonous plants, other hazards that are out there that you may not consider, or you may have considered, or you've run across it. We'll talk about some confined space issues that cropped up mostly with, I guess, the water division, or drinking water division, and some questions they had, or some individuals in there had. And then we'll kind of conclude. I can also be reached by email, and I'll spell that for you. My name is Marshall. It's MARCHEL .Johnson, JOHNSON, at dhrm.virginiaspelledout.gov. So at any time, if you have questions even after this, you can email me at any time. All right. So we talked a little bit about that, the remote worker, travel safety, equipment, the various equipments that you guys might use, insects, snakes, critters, and other wildlife, poisonous plants, weather. I'm not sure if you think about the weather conditions when you go outside to work. Like I said, I pulled workers' compensation statistics, and a lot of it we're going to talk about the weather. And then just different safety hazards. All right. So let's talk a little bit about what are some of those inherent hazards or hazardous tasks that you do on a day-to-day basis. Well, the first one is you get in your vehicle and you drive to work, or you drive wherever you need to go. So vehicle safety, that's your primary hazard. It's a risk that we all take, whether it's a state-issued vehicle, whether it's your personal vehicle. Those are some inherent hazards. How about remote locations where you might not have cell phone coverage? Ever been to any of those? Could be a big issue. That's some of that personal awareness we're going to talk about. How about unfriendly or uncooperative citizens that you may be out there having to provide your service for? And not necessarily just the citizens, but what about their family members? What about their animals? Cats, dogs, all those types of things. If you needed help and you were in a situation, would you be able to tell somebody where you were? Okay, I want you to think about all those things. Think about those as we go through this training presentation, especially when we talk about the remote worker. Okay, Jeff. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the remote worker. I'm probably about 95% confident, because I see this statewide, that when you leave work in the morning to go wherever you're going, does anybody know where you're going? Do you have a planned agenda? Are you calling in and calling out? when you get to where you're supposed to go. So for example, I am a home health nurse, and I have 10 visits planned for today. That's probably a little bit much, but I have 10 visits planned today. And so I leave right from my house. I don't come into the office, and I start my day. When I'm done, I come home. I may check in with the office, I may not. Does your district or does your division have a policy about checking in and checking out throughout the day? And here's why I asked that question. What happens if you don't come home? Would we as an agency or your boss, or if you are a supervisor, would you even know where to go to find your people? Would you even have any idea where to start? It can happen. And I'll tell you how it can happen. In a previous life, when I worked for another, in the private sector, I had an employee that went missing. I didn't know about it. I worked for a large construction company. We didn't know about it. It wasn't until 3 days later, when the gentleman didn't show up and his wife was looking for his paycheck, that we started getting the phone calls. I mean, it's construction. There's some characters that work in the construction field. So we just thought he just wasn't showing up for work. I had no idea even where to begin to look for him. So unfortunately, he met his demise. It was a workplace accident. We were working in a shipyard, and he fell in and drowned, and we didn't know it. There was a bunch of breakdowns with the supervisor, with policies and procedures we had in place. So I want you to think about that. What if somebody's significant other called the next day and said, Marshall did not come home from work yesterday? Would you know where to even start to look for them? Some of you go into some very sketchy places. It's part of your mission. Some of you work alone all the time. Some of you may not even see coworkers for months. How are you checking in and out, and how are we accountable for our people? That's what I need to get you to start thinking about the remote worker and situational awareness. Do you know where you're at? Do you know the address you're going to? Do you have cell phone reception? What if you don't have cell phone reception? Think about going into a private citizen's home or a restaurant and being met with hostility. How do you address that? You as an agency have to come up, or a division have to come up with some of these policies and procedures, because everybody's is going to be a little bit different. How are you going to check in, check out? What if you're out in the middle of a field doing whatever you're doing, and somebody's shooting at you because it's hunting season and you don't have some sort of blaze orange on? Are you issued blaze orange? Those of you who are out in the field, do you have blaze orange clothes? Okay. If you were to get hurt, how are you going to call for help? Do you have a whistle? Do you have your cell phone with you? Do you have some sort of mechanism to signal for help? Those are the things that I want you to think about when you're going out there that should be part of your day-to-day operation, just as easy as getting in the car and putting your seatbelt on. Okay, I've got to go to these 5 places today. I'm working alone. Does anybody know where I'm at? Even if it's your significant other, let them know where you're going, because at least then there's a place to start. Do you keep your calendars updated? Is there a schedule that you keep updated? Think about all those things. And then once we start going through this a little bit more, we'll start adding, like, what happens if a dog attacks me? What happens if I get a snake bite? How am I going to call for 911? Would I even know where to begin? Does 911 work out here? You know, the other thing you have to remember, depending on some of the counties that you're located in, sometimes 911 isn't putting you with the local authority. It might be a county over. So then they're going to have to transfer you to that 911. And even with state police, the same thing. If you do the star 77, it's going to get you to the closest divisional headquarters. So that might not be where you're actually located. So think about those things. Do you know what your emergency expectations are? Do you know what you're going to do? Think about that with driving. If you get a flat tire and you're out in the middle of nowhere, who are you going to call for help? What if the car breaks down? Who are you going to call for help? Would you even know what route number you were on? What the name of the street was? So think about those things as we go through here, and we'll talk a little bit more as we go on. So what's driving all this? Well, I decided to look through your workers' compensation losses for the past 3 fiscal years. And what I did was I looked at all the animal and insect incidents, which we had 44, and it cost us about $18,000. Give or take, that's not that much money, but 44 incidents. And most of those, when I looked at the accident descriptions, were those of you who are out in the field. Drinking water, environmentalist, home health, or I'm assuming they're home health visits from the nursing staff, or
personal care aides.
Yeah, personal care aides. So 44 is quite a bit. I also looked at vehicle incidents. We had 47 claims, $179,000. Whether it was a state vehicle or your personal vehicle, we're getting hurt. Then I looked at slips, trips, and falls, and I only pulled out slips, trips, and falls based on the injury description that I could determine maybe somebody was doing something out in the field, not I was sitting at my desk and the chair shot out from under me and I fell on it, or I was in the office and I tripped and fell over a cord. I looked at these things that made you look to see if it was associated with some type of activity. So roughly that was $286,000. So you can see.
Oh, I've
just
done it twice. I got nothing.
So you can see that's almost $500,000. So I went further and I said, well, let's look at what's going on with the animal and the insect bites. So I did. Insect bites, I spelled dog wrong. Insect bites, it's a doggy, yeah. Insect bites include bee stings, ticks, wasps, anything associated with that. Spider bites, caterpillar bites. We had 17 that, and I've got an extra comment in there too, that were about $1,000. Then I went to dog bites. We had 15 dog bites that cost us almost $13,000. That's a lot of money for dog bites. Dog bites can be nasty. And then I looked at rabies exposures, cuts that maybe we were working and having to secure animals and their body parts to determine whether or not they've been exposed or have the potential to be ravenous, and we as the agency had to work with those bodies. So we had 12 potential exposures, and that's about $4,000. So you can see here, I'm like, okay, well, we need to really focus in on what's driving this. So then I looked at the vehicle accidents. Most of the time, we're getting rear-ended by somebody else. And that's costing us $165,000 or more. 19 of those. What I'm going to teach you today through the vehicle safety class is situational awareness and how to potentially help you prevent an accident. We had collisions with other vehicles. We rear-ended somebody else. We were sideswiped. I had 3 claims that I really wasn't sure what the accident itself was. We had 3 incidents related to icy, rainy weather. We had 2 involved with the traffic light, meaning that somebody either ran a traffic light or didn't come to a complete stop at a traffic light and kind of went through and then got clipped. We had 2 incidents with us backing out of parking spaces. one avoiding an animal, and then we had two that one was somebody smashed their finger in the door of the car, and one that somebody was walking down the street and got struck by a vehicle. So all of that is going to be addressed, those things are going to be addressed as we go through here today. So I want you to think about that as we go through here and think about your activities and what you do.